My name is Frazier Pless. I'm a principal analyst. I'm going to be discussing Site Recovery Manager. Site Recovery Manager is valuable because it helps with the difficult problem of failing a group of virtual machines over to your DR site and bringing them up, because there's things that must be changed in a machine in order to bring it up somewhere else, like maybe its IP address or any slew of other things, port groups or whatever it needs to be connected in. And you can either manually do all that by hand, or you can program your recovery plan in Site Recovery Manager, and it's pretty much menu driven, because it's common things that you would have to do to a server in order to bring it up somewhere else. And you can go in there and you can actually have it prompt you to say, oh, by the way, you need to turn on the database server before you turn on this next server, and it pauses and waits there so you can go over here and turn on your database server, and then you click dismiss and it goes to the next step, which you wrote all these steps into the Site Recovery Manager. So that's what it does. It really helps execute a playbook for you to be able to help bring up your disaster recovery site. I've gone to a lot of Site Recovery Manager training here and stuff. One of the things that I think that they minimize is that normally you'll never use your DR site. But what you have to do every year is test your DR site. If you're a large company, you have to test your DR site. And that's the number one thing that Site Recovery Manager has helped me with, is that I can actually bring up my DR site in an isolated test environment, which is it's in the documentation on how to do this. It will actually create an entire secondary network or test network with all new port groups and switches, so you can bring your DR site online in a test environment and make sure it works. And then you click clean up and it all goes away. And the real DR site is still there the whole time. It's a very stable product. It is as scalable as VMware is itself. It's really just an add-on to the virtual center. It used to be responsible for replicating. It is no longer responsible for replicating. The replication portion of Site Recovery Manager has been moved to vSphere itself. A lot of people may not know this. So you do not need to buy Site Recovery Manager in order to replicate VMs around. You can do that for free. But the automation piece that I'm telling you about and the playbook and stuff is what you buy a Site Recovery Manager for now. Least favorite things about Site Recovery Manager, it is a little bit difficult to get set up the first time you've ever, just because it is so different. Actually paid a consultant to come out and help me, train me on how to install it. The very first time I installed it 3 versions ago, but I've done it enough now to where I'm comfortable with it. Yeah, I would like more tools to help with editing the embedded databases. I have run into some issues where human error, not something that VMware themselves would have ever planned for, but human error has caused the system to get out of sync, and the only way to correct that would be to actually manually edit the database, which you could do if Site Recovery Manager were on a Windows server. But now that everything's gone to this Linux appliance, this sealed up appliance, it's very difficult to actually edit the database. Or maybe just have a reset button for them to be able to put everything back to a normal state. Maybe that's all they would need to do. I was responsible for designing and implementing a DR solution for my company. And being that we were on a VMware environment, to me it seemed only logical to go to VMware first, because all the machines that I needed to put at my disaster recovery site are virtual servers. I was like, well, I'm sure VMware has a solution. Being able to test the environment, being able to make the changes to the virtual servers so they could come up on a different network. I needed to be able to go in there and change things like the IP address, the DNS settings and stuff like that, to be able for them to come up at a different location. No, they weren't at the time I did it. I've been using Site Recovery Manager for several years. So 9, I always think there's room for improvement. They would seriously need to sit down and take a machine. I want to bring this machine up over here on a different network at a different location, and write down all the steps that they would manually do if they were going to do this process by hand. And like I said, the replication is free, so they could technically replicate that over there right now today, make a copy of it and go, okay, now go bring it up over there and write down all the steps that you have to manually do. And then multiply that times the number of machines that you have to do for your DR site. In my case, it's about 100. I need to bring up about 100 servers. Then you sit there and think to yourself, okay, so this is, you could just take your watch and say, okay, I'm gonna start now. I'm gonna go over there and see what it takes to get this server up at the DR site. Well, that took me about 20 minutes. Okay, well, you multiply that times 100, and you're at 2,000 minutes. Okay, so would you have 2,000 minutes worth of time to go through and work on all these servers in the case of a DR scenario? And if the answer is no, then you probably should look at something to help you out, some tool to help you out with that, and that's what Site Recovery Manager brings. Everybody looks at reviews, and I look at the negative reviews as well, because I feel like sometimes that some of the positive reviews may not have been real, but people will always complain about something they don't like. They're the most vocal. So for Site Recovery Manager, I would probably type in Site Recovery Manager reviews into a search engine.